the RFL Network. I'm your host, Azu Malachi, breaking down the latest news, trends, fashion, and whatever else you might want to talk about here in the RFL world. Now, a lot of viewers have been asking me to do more insight and break down teams much further than I have in my previous videos, like I did in video 1. So today with me, I have a guest speaker from the Nardar Nirvana, Shavrae. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. All right, let's jump right into it. So Shav was a little disappointed that back in video 3, I didn't mention that he picked up pretty good stats playing against the Ardon Express. Shav recorded a total of 9 touchdowns, 8 tackles, 2 incompletions, and also 1 sack. Now, Shav, your stats are pretty impressive, but looking back at Gaz picking up 13 tackles in 1 game, who do you think put on a better show?
Well, personally, I believe that Chuck does a better on the defensive end and I do better on the offensive end. But as a team effort, we've all got to, not really take on the responsibility of being a star player because we've all got team chemistry. We've been together for 5 years since RSW, and we don't want to, look on to each other sort of selfishly and expect things of them. So whereas they were throwing a little bit towards Chuck's side, and he picked up a lot of tackles, and then I was helping on the run because they weren't really going to me as much, the roles could reverse at any point in time in the season, and we are all expected to do our best and perform as we can. And Chuck really stepped up on the defensive end.
Now, I think you mentioned one time in a conversation with Big that Chuck has been regarded as one of the greatest defensive players to play in the RFL at this time. Do you think that maybe Ardon didn't do their research when they kept passing the ball to his side throughout the entire game?
Oh yeah, man. I don't want to sound like prideful or anything, but they were really avoiding me. They'd thrown on me 2 times the entire game, and not at all the entire second half. And Chuck was just constantly racking up inks and downs. So then they started to run the ball, and then Tiger and I were really cutting them off, and Chuck was helping too. But I think the majority, if not all, of my tackles came from run defense. So their repeated use of Chuck as their throw-to guy really showed, because I think they only got like 3 receiving touchdowns on Chuck's guy, or at all.
Right. Now, while we're on the issue of tackles, I know that the council recently decided going into week 2 that they would ban capes and flippers, items that have been in the RFL since pretty much the dawn of the game. What do you think the overall impact on tackles and sacks will we see from this banning of these items? Do you expect to see them back in the game, or what is your thoughts on that?
I haven't really seen much of a difference. I don't really think there was much of a difference. The thing is, there was about 1 play on 4th down during my game where if I had have had a cape, I would have tackled him because my hand went through the ball, and then he proceeded to run right behind me. So there's about 1 instance where it would have actually made a very big difference in the game flow, because at that point it was still close. But in the other 2 games, I didn't see anything that suggested anything.
Well, what is your personal opinion? Would you like to see the capes and flippers come back, or do you believe that it was a good move to remove them?
I'd like to see them back, even though they're not that big of a deal. I think that capes and flippers are just really nice, and for the 7 or 8 seasons that I've played, they've always been pretty instrumental points, and they really allowed you to customize your character in certain senses.
Right.
And I enjoyed wearing my Quest cape week to week.
Well, in relationship to the NFL, in the NFL they really don't have any type of drapes or garments of whatsoever hanging behind their jerseys or their pads. Do you think that, in respect to the actual game, that it's fair that we include items such as flippers that make your feet twice as long and capes that drag behind you when you run?
Well, you can't really go to that standard because I've tried to implement things to make offense a little bit more realistic, and the rest of the council wouldn't go for it because they don't want the RFL to be a perfectly realistic thing. So you can't go there. It's a RuneScape game loosely based off of the real thing.
All right. Okay, well, moving on to our next topic. I know that the council has really been trying to push the recruiting movement as to get new rookies into the game. What do you think? Well, you're on the console yourself. How's the progress with that going? Are we seeing more rookies coming in? Are we picking up prospective players that'll make a good movement into the future of the RFL?
I believe that we've had 2 or 3 rookies come in ever since my implementation of the recruitment plan that I've been working on since I was PA. And we've seen that Tilt has recruited, Dark still hasn't, and I believe that Honor is working on it, if not having already done it. We've seen veterans start to come back, like Cool, that went to the Edgeville Jets, and Sportsman, who went to the Polynevich Packers. So I believe the RFL is getting a little bit more active, especially during the time of 6 teams. And I think that the recruitment process does have something to do with that. And I'm happy to see teams finally starting to recruit, albeit they did need to have it mandatory to do it.
Well, here's another thought that I had, and it's just a thought. It doesn't represent any opinions that I've heard whatsoever. But my idea is that for rookies to stay in this league, they're going to definitely have to pick up more playtime. Now, last week I saw something very astounding. I saw Windshire pick up 3 rushing touchdowns from the running back position when nobody has had any yet so far in the season. And then A-Oil on the Yet Alliance picked up a really good game too. When Big stepped out for Leon, he picked up a few tackles. But I think the thing that's going to keep players wanting to stay in this league is more playtime. Do you believe that possibly we should try to initiate a maximum playtime for our veteran players so that the rookies can get a chance to get in the game as well?
I think that's a good idea to some extent, except for the fact that when you're in a very close game, subbing out players really shouldn't have an effect on the game, because then people are going to start subbing out players during, certain times, or they're going to keep them in to capitalize on a turnover. And then once they do, they'll just put their rookies in and hope that'll go well. But I think that it's just on owners to know when to put rookies in and to train them on their own time, so that they'll get better at the RFL and they'll want to keep coming back and to strive to get better. That's how I ended up staying as long as I did.
Right, understandable. Okay, well, last topic before we close the video. The power rankings on your behalf, who do you think is the #1 rated team so far in the RFL?
The only undefeated team left.
So you would definitely go with you and the Nirvana.
Yes, I think that the only close second would be West Arty, and we just completely wiped them off the map, so, yeah.
How would you rank the other teams in order from 3 to 6?
I would have to say number 3 would be the Edgeville Jets, who just put on a pretty impressive performance. Then we would have Varrock, who I think last week just sort of didn't really show up like they would. I think that Varrock is going to progressively get better, but they need KFC on their team to continue to do better. They couldn't function with just you and James and whoever the other people were. And then Ledia would be 5, and unfortunately Polynevich or Catherby Chargers, whoever they are right now, are the bottom-ranked team right now. And that's probably due to their 0-2 record, which, unbeknownst to most people, could potentially be 1-1. But their losses were just so big, they couldn't really get past it. The spaghetti in week 1, and then now getting blown off the map by a team that just got blown off the map.
And what are your thoughts on that? Because I know that me and you spoke with Cavi earlier before his, I don't know what you want to call it, untimely demise. But he's spoken and regarded his team as one of the oldest, most veteran teams in the RFL. And you look at players that have got plenty of player experience, and you would think that, they would be up 2-0 or 1-1 right now, and they're 0-2. What do you think their biggest downfall is?
Rust. They haven't been in the league for so long that they're just not as good as they used to be. And when you have players like Sportsman and Dark and Luke, who are all here for so long, they should be more than 0-2, obviously. But they're not, because number 1 of boneheaded mistakes, and number 2 because they can't really get any defensive stops at all. Dark has a tendency to make really terrible defensive teams that have to make up for it on offense, and he just can't continue to make teams like that.
So let's speak on Lieta real quick before we close the video. Lieta going into week 1 was considered one of the worst teams in the RFL after losing badly to Narda, and it became a huge issue about their rookies and their playtime after Private was released. Now seeing that AO has really stepped up the game, picked up 7 passing touchdowns, do you see a change in their direction of play? Where you said you ranked them at, I think 4 or 5, I believe. Where do you see them ending up at the end of the season?
I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but another thing to keep in mind is that the Narda defense is probably now regarded as the #1 defense in the league after holding a team that scored insane amounts week 1 to just 54. Our defense, not to sound overly well, whatever. It's really good. It's really good, and I think that Lieta saw that in week 1, and that really made them get looking at themselves and then practicing. And I think if Lieta continues to practice, which I'm not sure they'll do, they'll end up in the playoffs. I don't think they'll go very far, but they'll end up in the playoffs. If they don't continue to practice, they're not going to do anything for the rest of the season.
Right. Well, once again, we've been on the call we've been on a chat call with Shavrae and Josh, or whatever you want to go by. Thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this special presentation of the RFL. I'm your host, Malachi. Rate, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.